Hey there, Shakers, and welcome back to another episode of Worth Your Salt, the podcast that's here to supercharge your marketing in the health and wellness space. I'm Jennifer Orechwa, StoryBrand Certified Guide, and over the past 2 decades, my team and I have tested, iterated, and figured out what it takes to market and grow so you don't have to. Now I'm here to help you apply the marketing systems that truly work. At Salt Marketing, we're all about helping health and wellness practitioners like you build trust, authority, and a nonstop flow of clients. So if you're ready to take your practice to the next level, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Now, a couple of years back, when we were recording episode 24 of Worth Your Salt, my friend and guest Annie Schiffman said, "You know who you need to meet? Jody Layne." And her name stuck in my head, but our paths never crossed until we both happened to be at a little mini mastermind for Keep Partners a couple of weeks back. And from the moment we started talking, I knew Annie was spot on. Jody is one of those people who lights up a room with her energy, sprinkles insight on everyone she meets, and her positivity is contagious. Her brilliance is undeniable. And so I felt so grateful in that moment. So Annie, if you're listening, thank you. Jody is a powerhouse entrepreneur. She is a marketing expert and a visionary leader. She's the founder and CEO of Accelerated Medical Practices, AMP, where she helps wellness providers build thriving hormone practices. AMP isn't just another consulting firm. It's the culmination of Jody's decades of hands-on experiences in hormone therapy, having developed a wildly successful hormone clinic from scratch. And Jody and her team have been in the trenches, evolving and growing as HRT itself has actually evolved and grown. And so now she's sharing those hard-earned secrets with other hormone practitioners, empowering them to build the practice of their dreams 3 times faster. So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce you to Jody Layne. Jody, thank you for coming. Welcome to Worth Your Salt.
Wow, thank you so much. That was a really beautiful introduction. I appreciate that very much. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. Well, it's from the heart. Absolutely. And I know you've really had a dynamic career journey. And I would love to hear how, 7 years as COO at the Florida Center for Hormones and Wellness kind of sparked your passion for hormone clinic growth.
Absolutely. I call it kind of my midlife crisis. So I had been in marketing for the last 25 years. I owned a couple of different agencies. My husband and I developed a software as a service product that we spent years trying to get off the ground, which we didn't, but we learned a lot through that process. And the last agency that I owned back in 2015, I met a very dynamic doctor, Dr. Carazella, who had a hormone practice. It was just beginning, the beginning stages, and he asked for some help. And so I, dive right in, and you'll understand this, Jennifer, as a marketer. The most amazing thing I found with working with him in the hormone practice was it was so easy to attract potential patients because we really were solving a problem, and we weren't just doing it with opinion; we were doing it with science. And so a couple of years into working as his marketing agency, he asked me to go to dinner to get some advice because he couldn't find a practice manager that was helpful enough to get him to grow his practice to where he wanted it to go. And I said, after 3 glasses of wine, hire me. And and so he did. And really it was time for me to kind of graduate from agency life where I was working on multiple different types of products, multiple industries. I wanted to hone in on one thing, and hormones lit me up. So I joined that practice back in 2017 and began that 7-year journey.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that agency experience. You spent 3 years as CEO of the Greenleaf Group, working with hormone clinics who are struggling to grow or who might have reached a plateau and didn't know where to turn for help. So, how did that experience shape your approach to strategic growth in terms of clinics?
I consider the Greenleaf Group kind of like my trial to consulting. So, prior to the Greenleaf Group, I was just COO of this practice and was doing all the things marketing, business development, culture building, all the things you need to do to build a business. And we were doing really well. And in 2020, at the heart of COVID, I was invited to speak at WorldLink Medical, which is one of the premier training programs for hormone providers. And there were 12 people in the room. Half of them were my own staff, and tons of people online because that's what we were doing back in COVID. And I did a presentation about marketing and a presentation about culture. And I thought, no one's paying attention, no one's listening. And I was inundated with phone calls and emails. Jody, can you and your team help me do something with my practice? And so I realized there was a huge need. There were a lot of great medical trained providers who had no idea how to grow their businesses. So we started the Greenleaf Group, and it was all over the place. It was consulting, it was programs, it was products, it was everything. And after doing that for 4 years, I really felt like I had learned what providers needed in order to truly not just know the information, but actually implement it into their practice. And I changed my team around, and so we relaunched as Accelerated Medical Practices last year.
Very nice, very exciting, and I love that journey. Absolutely. So I'm wondering, what sort of unique challenges have you seen relative to, you were saying, like, it's so easy to grow because you're getting fantastic results. But what specific challenges are there in growing a hormone replacement service as opposed to other wellness services?
I think probably one of the biggest challenges that hormones have over other wellness practices is the amount of information that is out there that is incorrect. So, if you're a gym owner or a chiropractor or an acupuncturist, maybe acupuncturist falls more on the same lines as hormones,
Mhm.
but most wellness practices, there is a lot of common shared information about how this practice, this wellness journey can help you. But with hormones, it's all over the place. When I started back with Dr. Carazella in 2017, it was like having to re-educate all of our potential patients who thought hormones would kill them. It was going to cause breast cancer, prostate cancer, just all these awful things. And now it's a little bit different. People are a little bit more educated. They understand the science a little bit more, but it's still out there. As a matter of fact, I was on TikTok this morning, and there is a clinic out there doing TikToks that hormone replacement therapy is a scam, that all you need to do is sleep better, eat better food, and exercise, and your hormones will be fine, which is completely not true. So there's that misinformation that's out there. And unfortunately, it's really difficult if you've been with your primary care doctor for the last 15, 20 years, and suddenly you reach the age of 47 and you feel lethargic and your libido's down, and you're just not feeling the way that you used to. And you find a hormone expert and you start your treatment, and you go back to your primary, and your primary says, "Oh no, get off of that. You've got to get off that medication or it's going to kill you." Who do you believe? And so I think that is probably why marketing is so easy, because you're really dispelling myths. You're giving patients what they want, which is the information that's going to change their lives in a scientific way. And over the years, it's getting easier and easier to penetrate those myths and really tell the truth. But I think that's probably one of the things that hormone practitioners suffer with more than other wellness providers.
And that makes perfect sense. So, thinking about those patient expectations and the market dynamics and even regulatory factors, how have those things changed how we should approach marketing hormone replacement therapy?
Well, there's always people that still need to be educated. No, how do I want to say this? There are not medical doctors that are going to school and learning about hormones. They don't teach that in medical school. They don't teach nutrition. They don't teach a lot of things to keep us healthy in medical school. So we still have that element of education that we have to do. But now in 2025, there are some other challenges that hormone practitioners need to pay attention to. And that is one, online clinics. There's a ton of online clinics that are popping up all over the country. Now, the laws changed around COVID when it became more difficult to see your doctor in person. So they changed the rules saying that, you didn't have to have a physical appointment. Well, they, at least in some states, have kept that rule going. So it's a lot easier for an online practitioner to treat anyone they want anywhere in the country. And so, that opens it up for people that maybe aren't as well trained, people that are approached by other, treatment companies that say, "Hey, you should do this to add more revenue." And then the other thing that I'm noticing a lot more in 2025 are influencers. TikTok, Instagram, all the social media channels. It's either women who are going through menopause that are just sharing their journey, or it's fitness experts sharing what they know. And it's not that they're necessarily wrong always, but they don't know the science. And so I've been, working a lot more now with practitioners that have been doing this for a lot longer and saying what you need to say as your unique value proposition is that you do advanced hormone therapy. It's no longer just hormone replacement therapy. Now we're reaching an element of advanced hormone therapy. And a lot of practitioners are doing a little more longevity medicine, going into more weight loss and nutrition, like really expanding out from just the hormones as a base in order to show the differentiation between, again, a 55-year-old mom who means well when she's TikToking all over the place, but maybe dispelling some incorrect information.
I love that phrase, TikToking all over the place. All right, Jody, we've got to take a quick sponsorship break right now. After the break, I wanted to hear all about how all those lessons learned mean that today hormone clinics can really leap ahead to success using your methods. Stay with us.
Let's talk about growth. We're talking that pivotal moment when you get serious about growth and having a serious strategy behind it. Growth that comes without the growing pains, where your business retains its valuable clients, where your team is growing and thriving, where you have a major impact on your industry, on your family, on your community. Let's get you the tools you need with Keep, the all-in-one CRM, sales, and marketing automation platform that's so much more than just email. It's game-changing, business-changing, life-changing automation with a 20-plus year track record of helping businesses reach the next level. Let's also give you the know-how with Keep, because tech alone is not enough. You need one-on-one strategic coaching and support that's personalized to your business needs and dialed in to unlock your potential. So you create more leads, follow up flawlessly to make them happy clients, then convert them into super fans. And that becomes more repeat business, more referrals, more raving reviews. Let's stop worrying if you forgot to send an email. Let's stop worrying if you followed up on a lead. Let's throw away the spreadsheets, ditch the reminder sticky notes, and unstack the patchwork tech stacks. Keep gives you back the business you actually want to run. So let's grow with the automation you want. Let's grow with the support you need. Let's grow with the community you can be a part of. Let's grow with Keep.
We're back here on the Worth Your Salt podcast with Jody Layne of AMP Accelerated Medical Practices, talking about how hormone therapy providers can leverage a proven blueprint to decrease the amount of time and energy they need to get to their goals. So AMP promises to grow hormone practices 3 times faster. So I'm hoping that you can share some of the key elements of your proven blueprint and how each component kind of drives this rapid growth.
Absolutely. So we've spent a lot of time so far talking about marketing, and that's what everyone wants to talk about because marketing is the access to more revenue. And that's what we want: more patients, more revenue, bigger clinics, all that. But what we realize here at AMP is that when we start with marketing and sales, you could be setting the clinic up for failure because there are so many other things that are necessary to put into place and put into place strongly before you start growing your clinic. So we created this thing called the POWER framework. And POWER stands for positioning, operations, workforce, experience, and revenue. And we believe it should go in that direction. So positioning, it's doing planning, it's knowing your pricing, it's knowing your goals, it's creating your core values, your core focus, all of those things like in your business planning section. Once that's set, you can move into operations. Operations is key because if you don't get your patient's prescriptions in for 3 or 4 days or you miss appointments, I mean, all those operational things fall apart. No matter how much you market, you're going to lose your patient base. Then we go into workforce. I believe that your staff is the most important thing that you have in your clinic because the doctor or the provider sees the patient about 30% of the time, and the other 70% of the time they are working with your staff. And if you don't have an amazing culture, if you don't have a staff that is well trained, that are little entrepreneurs that really want to be there, then it's really hard for you to grow and to scale. And then there's experience. Nowadays, you walk into a doctor's office and you wait an hour, 10 years ago, that wasn't that big of a deal. These days, it's even more of a big deal, especially since with hormones, we're paying out of pocket. Our insurance company isn't picking up that bill. You're, paying anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 a year, depending upon the program that you're in. And you expect to have an incredible experience. And guess what? We believe in instant gratification these days. If you're not, you're going to pick up and go someplace else. So we want all of those things set into place before we even start to market. Now you can market a little bit. Obviously, you've got to grow your clinic. We have, we realize that, but we really focus on all those other aspects first before we dive too much into the marketing spend.
And I want to go back to something you said a minute ago about 70% of the time that someone interacts with your practice, they're really interacting with the rest of your staff. I had a good conversation with a friend about a week ago talking about Unreasonable Hospitality, if you read that book by Will Guidara.
Mm-mm.
But we talked about basically appointing someone on your staff as the director of first impressions. Like
Oh,
that person is the
love
person who
that.
takes care of that. So I'm wondering what advice you give, what sort of mentorship do you give around developing the right staff and the right people?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, not with AMP, but just some general tips. The first thing is in a hormone clinic, everyone in your practice or every one of your staff members should be hormonally trained, even if they're not of age to get hormones. I always promote sending your staff, even your front desk person, I mean, everybody to some level of certification so they can answer questions at a very basic level. No one expects staff members to give medical advice, but if it's a simple question, they should be able to answer it. I'll give you a good example. I was working with a clinic last week in Kentucky, and I asked the patient liaison, "Hey, so if I was a patient and I asked you, how long do I have to be on hormones?" She said, "Well, until you feel good, and then we can start to taper you off." And that's not true. Once your hormones are depleted, you have to be on hormones for the rest of your life or as long as you want to feel good. So that's a key indicator that staff is not trained well. So that's something that you can do. But the other thing I really believe in is culture. I do think that to have a really strong business, and this is not just for hormone practices, this is any business. If to have a strong business, you need a strong culture, meaning that you need to know as a leader what are your values and hire people that not only believe in those values, but strive to operate in those values on a day to day basis. You've got to stay connected in communication with staff meetings, quarterly meetings, annual meetings, doing reviews. I mean, all of that communication is key and making everybody feel valued. It's not just about the paycheck, it's about them loving coming to work every day and feeling they're making a difference. So,
Yeah, I love that. So I would love to talk about, we talk about staff and development and core values and those sorts of things. What sort of pitfalls do you see that hormone clinics fall into? How does AMP's playbook help clinics avoid those mistakes and accelerate success?
well, I think the biggest thing that most hormone clinicians fall into is they just want to treat patients. They just want to show up, take care of the patient, and go home. And I studied Michael Gerber back in the day when his book E Myth Revisited came out, and he talked about the technician. So whether you're a doctor, an accountant, or a lawyer, or whatever you do, you believe you can do it better. So you leave your job and you open up your own business, and you forget that you now have two full-time jobs. You're a business owner and you're the technician. And that is one of the first things that we try to educate our providers on is that, if you can do anything else but be a business owner, go do it because this is hard. And, it takes a lot of work and a really strong growth mindset, you know, to believe that you can do anything, whether you've got that skill or not. That's really what it takes. So I think that's the first thing that we have to kind of readjust their mindset about that if you own the clinic, you've got to pay attention to all aspects of the clinic. A lot of providers want to hire us and say, "Hey, you're the consultant, just go take care of everything." And that doesn't work either. Like we're not in your office on a day-to-day basis. So we can teach principles, we can give you resources, we can come to the office and train and help implement. But at the end of the day, you're the one there on a day-to-day basis. And so making sure that the clinic owner understands that you've got to put into practice all the traditional business practices that other businesses do. And I'll say one more thing about that. Most doctors or providers when they come out of medical school, they don't start with owning their own clinic. They go work for a group or for a hospital, and everything is taken care of for them. So they don't realize all the extra work. And when it comes to marketing, they expect patients to just show up, and they should because that's how they get their patients in a traditional practice. Someone goes to their insurance company and you're on the insurance list and boom, you've made a connection. But in a hormone practice, it's much more of a retail experience. Patients are doing their own research. They are evaluating based on cost. They're evaluating based on experience and results. So we have to teach all those parts and principles.
Yeah, definitely. And that mindset piece of it that you mentioned is an important part of it. We hear a lot, that they just expected people to show up. And I always go back to the field of dreams analogy. It is not the field of dreams. People are not going to come if you build it. And so for clinics that are struggling with patient attraction and retention, I know you offer some really actionable strategies for growth. So can you give us a glimpse of a tactic or two from your playbook that we might be able to start using immediately?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll give a marketing one and then I'll give an operational one. So for marketing, and I'm speaking to the choir here with you, but when somebody comes to your website, give them something to do besides read and book a consult. Most of the people that end up on your website are not ready to book. And so that being the only thing that they can do is a little intimidating. And if you spend $10 to $1,000 to get that lead to your homepage, give them something to do where they can learn the inbound marketing methodology. So that would be probably one of the most important things in a marketing perspective, I would say. And then from the business side, it's about pricing. So I'm pretty surprised at the number of practices that build their pricing model around what their competitors are doing.
Mhm.
And well, when they say, well, okay, well, I charge, let's say, I have a membership program and I charge $2,500 a month. Why do you do that? $2,500 a year. Why do you do that? Well, because the practice down the street does that. Well, what do they offer? Well, I don't know. Do they include the hormones in their price? I don't know. Like how many times they see the patient throughout the year? I don't know. So when you are pricing out your services, you've really got to look at all the different things that are included in that price. How many times is the patient going to be walking through the door, getting on the phone with you? What are your fixed expenses? What are your cost of goods sold? What is your net? Because the net revenue at the end of the day is how you're going to survive. And a lot of times, they're just not tracking that. They're not paying attention to that. So I would say pricing is probably the biggest thing that I see that right off the bat, we can make an impact with.
So you guide clinics to a future where success is built on that foundation of proven systems and your expert support, of course. But what's one transformative action that you think that every hormone clinic owner should go ahead and just take advantage of now?
Um, Creating goals. I think that, you know, we talk a lot about predictable profit. And as a matter of fact, we got a great course all about predictable profit. And I see so many hormone clinicians struggle. They are spot on when it comes to taking care of the patient. But the truth is, without a practice, without there being sustainable revenue in the practice, no matter how great you are at taking care of the patient, if you are not there, you're not taking care of them. As a matter of fact, that is AMP's mission. Our mission is for every human on the planet to have access to hormone replacement therapy. And the way we do that is by making sure that practices can be sustainable on the business end so they can stay alive. So goals are the key to making sure that you have predictable profit. If you don't know where you're going, there's no chance that you're going to get there unless by accident. So when we start with any clinician, that is usually the first thing we recommend is we do our business planning. We figure out their pricing. We figure out where they want to be at the end of the year revenue wise. Then we break that down to the number of patients that they need to be seeing in each service category on a monthly basis and create those goals so that they can then drive their marketing budget. They can drive their grassroots activities. Everything comes from those goals. And if you start from that foundation, then success is way more probable.
That's fantastic insight. I really appreciate that. All right, Jody, it's time for another quick break. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to the Worth Your Salt podcast, and today I'm talking with Jody Layne of AMP about proven systems to grow your hormone practice 3 times faster. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to join us over on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook, and let us know how you're optimizing your operations, marketing with precision, and getting the support you need to get to your goals. And we're back. And so before the break, Jody, you and I were talking about lead generation. We were talking about the pitfalls potentially for hormone clinics. I would love to talk a little bit about retaining clients and share some resources. So talking about AMP's proven blueprint from optimizing operations to mastering marketing. So how do you envision a future where every hormone clinic can thrive effortlessly while the doctors return to what they love, which we talked about, which is caring for the patients?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, there's so many things, but let's just touch on a few things. The first thing is, once those goals are created that we talked about before, then it's a matter of figuring out what needs to happen in order to make those goals come to fruition. That's one of I think, the unique value propositions that we at AMP have for our practitioners is that we've done it before. We've made the mistakes. We're trying to eliminate that trial and error. But even if you aren't working with with a consulting company like AMP, it's really a lot of common sense. So if you say that you want to make $1 million by the end of the year, then you're going to need probably about, let's say, 300 patients. Those 300 patients, if you're going to spend some money in getting those patients through the door, then we need to make sure we have the investment in the staff and make sure there's enough people to service those patients. I hear a lot of times at some of the conferences, people boasting, I do no marketing and I just have 2 staff members and I'm doing great. Well, okay, that's wonderful for you, but that's not the norm. The norm is that there's a lot of phone calls, there's a lot of hand holding with hormones, especially at the beginning. And you want to make sure that you've got good, caring people that are going to be there to answer the phones. And then, you mentioned retention. There's nothing worse than spending all that money on marketing and your staff in this beautiful office and just to have people shop on price. And a hormone clinic opens up down the street and off they go. So it's making sure that you're staying connected. One of the things about hormone treatment is that it's not consistent. So if I walk in the door day one at 45 and on the third year, I am suddenly not feeling well any longer. It's not because the hormones aren't working. It's because I've aged 3 years. And if the clinic is not paying attention to me and evolving with me and reevaluating my goals and looking at my lab levels and making sure that I am still progressing as I age, then I'm going to assume that it's the clinic's fault and off I go to another clinic. So continually educating with, you never want to stop dating your patients, basically. You just want to keep that spark alive and making sure you validate why they come to you. And, there's some onus on the clinic as well, making sure to continue to be, going to certification classes and to conferences and staying, a step ahead of what's going on in the wellness industry because things are changing all the time. And we're finding that, and again, I'm not a provider, but I spend enough time with providers to know that so many things about the way we conduct our lives are interconnected with how we feel, from what we eat to how we sleep. And the hormone foundation is just a big piece of it. So being able to communicate in all levels is really important for that retention as well.
I'm going to go back to something that you said a little bit ago about planning out this is how many leads you'll need to get this many patients for each of these services to reach your goals. And you've talked about business planning a couple of times as we've been talking. That doesn't seem like something like what most medical providers have already learned how to do. So I know
No.
AMP has a course that teaches providers how to plan. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I get a little excited about it because I love this part. I feel like business planning is like a big old puzzle. You start with this dream of what do I want my practice to look like when it's successful, and then you work backwards. And so you're right. There are no places out there that doctors can go to learn about this in the traditional fashion. So we created a course. It's called the Predictable Profit Formula Business Planning Mastery for Hormone Clinics. And it's a 6-course event where you will learn from me just all the major principles that you need to pay attention to in order to create that plan. And it's, there's resources that you get as part of the course. And again, none of it is above what any medical provider is capable of doing. It's really just a matter of knowing where to look, how to think, and how to prepare. And I say this in the course, like it'll probably take, after watching the course, about 10 hours of your time to put the plan together. And if you're traditionally earning $500 an hour, that's a $5,000 investment. But if that plan can bring you 10, 15, 20 new patients, it more than pays for itself. And if it's set up properly, all that 10 hours equals a lot less time and a lot less headaches down the line. So it is something that is very unique and different, that when medical providers, find out that business planning is something they need to be doing as well as treating their patients, they're like, okay, not really that excited about it. But I've worked with over 50 clinicians doing this business planning one-to-one, and I've always see the light come on their eyes, go, "Oh my gosh, yes, this is exactly what I needed to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do."
Very nice. So how would you encourage hormone practitioners to sort of reimagine their practice, not just as a business, but a community where their wins are their patients' wins, and it's just sort of propels that journey forward to that seven-figure success story that you guys talk about?
Well, I think it's a matter of, just figuring out, like, why did you start doing this in the first place? I think with any business, if you get into the business to make money, you're already set up for failure, because if you do what you truly love and you're passionate about, the money will come with a little bit of guidance, a little bit of tweaking, the money will come. So, I've heard this from more than one practitioner. Hormone patients are challenging at first. I mean, think about it. They're walking through the door at a time in their life where they feel the lousiest. Their energy is gone. Their sleep is messed up. They're gaining weight and they don't know why. There's no clear path for them as to why all this is happening. They're grumpy. Maybe they're not having the great relationship with their spouse. We've heard on more than one occasion, patient walks in and says, "Doc, fix me now or I'm going to be divorced by the end of the week." Things like that are real for patients. And so it can become, on the day-to-day grind, a little frustrating and hard to keep up with all of that, because it's negative. But if you keep in mind what your purpose is, remind yourself of the people that 3 months after they start treatment say, "Oh my gosh, you saved my marriage," or "I'm now back at the gym. I haven't gone to the gym consistently in 10 years. Whatever their success story is, keep that in focus, because if that is your goal, then investing 10 hours of your time or a couple of $1,000s in marketing, all of that just seems like just a pathway to getting what you really want, the reward of happy patients.
So even with the enormous amount that you've shared with us in this conversation, I feel like there's so much more to you and to what you offer. So if we want to learn more about you, about what you're up to, where can we go?
Well, you can go to our website, acceleratedmedicalpractices.com. I've got an amazing team. There's 3 guys behind me that, I've got an excellent marketer. My operations manager from our old clinic is my partner, Patrick, a fantastic graphic designer and expert marketer and writer. So there's a team of us. We offer a number of different services, from business plan workshops to online courses to clinic evaluation. We'll actually come to your clinic if you're an established clinic, spend a couple of days watching, shadowing, and then give you an action plan for success. We do marketing. We market only for hormone clinics. So there's a lot of different ways that we can work with you, and it all starts with a discovery call. So if you come to our website and you click on the many CTAs all over the place that say book a discovery call, it's a free call. We just find out, like, what are your barriers? What's going on with you? How can we help? And if we can't, trust me, we're going to let you know.
And I know you had a special offer for our listeners. Did you want to go ahead and share that?
Yes, absolutely. So our course, the Predictable Profit Formula course, is normally $297, but if you go to acceleratedmedicalpractices.com/salt marketing, you get $50 off, so it's just $247.
Very nice. And of course, a link to the AMP website and everything we're talking about here today will also be on our website over at saltmarketing.co. But right now, Jody, it is time for our lightning round questions. These are a few quick questions that I like to ask of every guest. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First question is, what is something about you that often surprises people?
Well, not much, because I'm a pretty open book. But usually the look I get when I tell people that I've run 26 marathons. So since the age of 26, I have run 26 marathons.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Next question is, what is your favorite thing about the work that you do?
Well, I get really invested in my clients. I always have, even before I was in the hormone space. Now it's even more. So I really get rewarded when I see their success. Like when a clinician and I speak and I say, like, what is your dream? What is your goal? And they have no idea. And we work together to really uncover what that goal is. And then we make it happen. That's gold. I love it.
I love that. All right. Very good. All right. Next question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Well, most of my advice comes from my mother, but the one that I hold dear is, she always said, be afraid and do it anyway.
That's right. Swallow that fear. Be brave. All right. Last question is, who is inspiring you right now? What podcasts are you listening to, or what's the best book you've read recently?
Well, I'm a big EOS fan, so I love anything EOS related, but I will admit that the last couple of weeks I have been diving into Russell Brunson. I know he's
Ah,
been around forever, the creator of ClickFunnels, but I just love his style. His passion comes through his words, and I feel like whether you are building an online empire or not, his business advice is just really, really good. So whether it's YouTube or his books, he's a pretty cool guy to listen to.
yeah, that's great. Jody, thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Worth Your Salt. I
Thanks,
feel like I learned a
Jennifer.
lot. I'm sure our audience did too. I also want to thank you, Salt Nation. If you have a great success story, I'd love to talk with you and share your story. So tell us about why you're worth your salt by emailing us at grow@saltmarketing.co. And of course, be sure to subscribe to Worth Your Salt so you never miss an episode. Leave us a review, give the show a handful of stars wherever you get your content. That's all for this episode of Worth Your Salt. Be sure to join us again next time. In the meantime, let's get out there and shake things up.